Greetings, comic friends. Welcome to the second episode of I've Got the Runs. This is the series in which I talk about runs of comics that either I'm reading, have read, or am collecting, or has some kind of significance in some way. As I mentioned in the first installment of this, aside from collecting new comics and key issues, I also like to collect runs of stuff that I just want to read. Sometimes like older stuff that's not available in like reprints or collections or things like that. And I don't really like doing digital. And I just like collecting things. So these are getting full runs of things. Is just part of my collecting. Now, actually, what I'm going to talk about today is not a full run, but a partial run. Sometimes it is good enough to collect part of a run of something that has some sort of significance. Some chunk, maybe it's defined by an author or an artist or a stretch of time, right? You might collect, I don't know, McFarlane's time on Amazing Spider-Man, or what got me into Hulk was collecting Peter David's run on Incredible Hulk. My initial intent of that was just to do the Peter David run of Hulk, and then it turned into what it turned into. So today I'm going to talk about a partial run that I'm currently reading. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, the first episode of this, I talked about a run that I was reading, the Nam, which is fantastic. I'm actually almost done with it. I have 10 issues to go. But at the same time, I'm reading this. So usually when I'm reading runs of things, I'll be reading a couple at once. I'll be reading something that is a little more current, and then something is a little bit older. So I've been reading the Nam, which started in the mid-'80s and went through the early '90s. There's also a Silver Age run that I am reading, and it is a partial run. That's out of order. So one of the other runs that I was collecting was Submariner. And in order to have what I thought was a full Silver Age Submariner run, I also wanted to get his run on Tales to Astonish. So Submariner was one of the two stories in the two-story series Tales to Astonish that ran from 70 to 101. During this entire time, it was Submariner and Hulk, two stories in one issue. For those of you that don't know, the reason they did this, both Tales to Astonish and Tales of Suspense, right? Tales of Suspense did both Iron Man and Captain America. At the time that these came out, Marvel Comics was actually being distributed by DC Comics. And DC Comics would only distribute so many books a month. I think it was, I don't remember. But they limited the number of books that they would actually distribute. But Marvel had all these characters. They had more characters than books they were allowed. So what they did is they used Tales to Astonish and Tales of Suspense to get a 2-for-1. They can tell Hulk stories and Submariner stories in one issue. They can tell Iron Man and Captain America. So they're not leaving a character on the shelf. You just get 2 half-size stories. This worked out really well for me, actually, because this also ends up being part of my Hulk run. Because these are all Hulk. Before issue 70, from issue 59 up to 69, it was Giant Man and Hulk. And before that, it was just Giant Man. Tales to Astonish. And before that, it was, it was Ant-Man, and then it was just kind of a monster book, as what was common in the very, very early Silver Age. So, a little history lesson for you there. So this counts for both my Submariner and Hulk run, but the reason that I got it to begin with was I was collecting Submariner. There's some good books in here. I am reading this now, so I'm kind of reading both Submariner and Hulk at the same time, just because you kind of have to. And I gotta say, I am absolutely loving this series, both the Submariner stories and the Hulk stories. And even though I got this for Submariner, I have to say, and it's great, I love the Hulk stories more. I will find myself away from home, like at work, thinking about, I want to go home and read some Tales to Astonish. I want to read some Hulk. I want to read some Tales to Astonish Hulk. And I'll say that so I've gotten through issue 84, and I'll go through, since I'm talking about this full sub run, I'll go through all the covers here, because I do have this full sub run, and it's fun to take a look at the covers and talk about some of the handful of key issues in here. There's not a lot, but there's a handful. As it got to, like, in the beginning, it was okay. But I'd say in the mid 70s to getting into the 80s, it really hit its stride. And both the Submariner and the Hulk stories, but the Hulk stories in particular, have been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's a great run. I was worried about how's it going to be with these basically 9 to 12 page stories for each. They're kind of split up differently depending upon the issue. They actually read really, really well. It's nice to have the full run of them, so I can just like read it one after another. So if I want to read a full issue length Submariner story, I just have to read 2 issues and I get one full Submariner's worth of content. But the shorter story, it works really, really well. They're all, at least so far, I think up through it, they are written by Stan Lee. At least the part that I'm in, the Submariner stories are illustrated by Jack Kirby, and the Hulk's stories, they're laid out by Kirby and drawn by I can't remember. It's good. The art is so good. It's just such good Silver Age stuff. But I'll go ahead and go through. I mean, there's a number of them. It's 70 through 101. It's a good run. It's a good chunk of books. And there's not a whole lot of keys in here. I was lucky. Most of these I was able to get, for $10, $15. But I started collecting them quite a while ago. It's not as easy to get them these days, especially with how much Submariner has blown up since they've kind of confirmed he's going to be joining the MCU. So kind of everything Submariner heated up. But luckily I got all these before that happened. But a lot of beautiful covers. What they'll usually do is they'll switch off covers. Like every other month you'll get a Submariner cover, and then the next week you'll get a Hulk cover, then a Submariner cover, then a Hulk cover, with some exceptions, as we kind of see at the beginning here. But as it goes on, it does that. There are some issues where they cross paths, which is kind of cool. I read an issue where they didn't actually meet, but there was a place where when you read the Submariner story and then the Hulk story, you can see they were actually in the same place at the same time, but they didn't actually run into each other. It was kind of cool. So they do fun stuff like that. But yeah, it's some of the most fun I've had reading Silver Age in a little while. I've read all other Hulk up to this point, so I've read the Hulk 1 through 6, and then the Tales to Astonish up until this point, and then I decided just to start reading these issues because I wanted to read Submariner as well. And these I don't know if these Submariner Tales to Astonish stories are collected anywhere. I know most of the Hulk ones are, but the Submariner ones weren't. So I figured I'm going to have to read the Submariner ones in issues. I might as well read the Hulk ones too because I'm in there, right? I'm literally in that issue, so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, let's go through these. Let's do a little cover gallery. That seems to be kind of fun. So the first one, number 70. So this is the first. On number 69, it was still Hulk and Giant Man. So this is when Giant Man gets kicked out and Submariner is brought in. A lot of these not worth anything. Well, I mean, they're worth something, but some of the, like this one is it is a significant issue because it is when Submariner jumps in. This is actually a pretty decent copy, and I'm surprised I have not sent this in to get graded. This is actually really nice. The price I paid for it a couple years ago is on the back, so it must be a good copy. And that was a couple years ago. Hachi-machi. All right, and then number 71. Oh, so this first one we have a little bit of both Hulk and Submariner. Submariner's a bit bigger, but it's also like Hulk. On a lot of the previous issues that were Hulk and Giant Man, they do covers like this where it showed both of them. It showed both Giant Man and Hulk. So they did that for this first issue, but going forward, that's I don't think that ever happens again. If they're on, well, maybe it does. Maybe it does from time to time. Yeah. Let's see. 71. And nothing super significant here. I mean, technically, it's the first appearance of this thing, the Seaweed Man or something, which I don't think ever showed up again. Number 72. So here there's Krang there, and a little hint at the Hulk story. Number 73. Some of these aren't in super great shape because I just wanted them to have the run to read them. So this has a color breaking crease. It's got a date stamp on it. I really, really don't like date stamps. I'm lightening up on them a little bit, but if they're on the back cover, I'm more okay with them, but I don't like them on the front cover. I know some people don't care. Some people don't mind. Some people actually like them because it's kind of part of the history of the book, and I understand that. For me, it just sort of disrupts the aesthetics, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. But this is just like this. I probably got for like $8 or something. It's like I can't pass that up. It's nothing significant. I just want to read it and have the run and have it be part of the run. So it's kind of fine. 74. That's a Submariner, Namor, and Lady Dorma on there. God, these covers are so good. Number 75. The end of the quest. What is this? Oh, the Trident quest. This first story of Submariner was Krang had overthrown Atlantis, and the Submariner had to go get Neptune's trident, and if you get, evidently it's the law, if you have Neptune's trident, you rule Atlantis. So he had to go hunt down Neptune and get his trident. It was fun. 76. So here we're starting to get more into it will trade off. It will do a Submariner cover, then it'll do a Hulk cover. We have 77. Yeah, at some point in this run, it comes out that Hulk is actually Bruce Banner. Number 78. This was interesting. Has the Puppet Master showed up in it. I think this was... Is this where it's... Submariner's losing his memory all the time. I think maybe that was part of that. These do make arcs. They're not usually just a standalone story for each character in the issue. And a lot of the arcs kind of bleed together. Like it's not as well defined as like part 1 through 6. They'll just kind of all kind of, they'll bleed all into each other. Number 79, this was fun. Hercules showed up. Number 80. Such great covers. This is a key, number 81. This is the first appearance of Boomerang, more known now to be a Spider-Man villain / ally, but his first appearance, he does not look anything like he does now. And in fact, he very rarely used his boomerang. He mostly had these discs that were like, you see him on his sleeves there, he'd pull them off and throw them, and they didn't come back. They weren't boomerangs. They were just like discs he threw. Every once in a while he'd throw a boomerang. It was kind of weird. But yeah, that is a very ugly character design. But first boomerang. Number 82. So the Submariner story had Iron Man, and there was actually 2 issues in Tales of Suspense where Namor showed up that made the full story. I didn't know that when I read this, and I don't have those issues, so I didn't get the full story. I got the gist of what was going on, but it was a crossover where they crossed over into each other's books, which is kind of fun because there's that Iron Man Submariner one shot that kicked off when Tales to Astonish became Incredible Hulk and Tales of Suspense became Captain America. Submariner and Iron Man, they were essentially kicked out of the respective books. There was an Iron Man and Submariner sort of one-shot story, and then from there they got their own individual series, Submariner 1 and then Iron Man number 1. So it's kind of cool. But that's why that one shot exists. And it's kind of weird talking about Silver Age one shots. That wasn't really a thing. But once those series ended or transitioned to Incredible Hulk and Captain America respectively, Submariner and Iron Man got their own books at that time. Number 83, I love yellow covers. This was a really great story. At this point, they kind of know that Hulk is Bruce Banner, and Hulk saves Betty and takes Rick Jones and General Ross, who has just been bloodthirsty for the Hulk, to Betty to say, like, here, she's safe, I saved her, or whatever. And at the end of it, General Ross is kind of like, maybe he's not so bad, maybe he's not quite the monster we thought. Obviously, that's going to change because it's like that notorious Ross hates Hulk sort of thing. So I'm sure in the next few issues that changes, but I haven't got there yet. Number 84. This is actually the issue where they cross paths. It's in a movie theater. They both end up going to the same city and kind of hiding out. Namor is actually looking for the Hulk for some reason. He's kind of tricked into looking for him and to fight him. And there's a theater that's showing a newsreel of the Hulk. So he goes in to try to get more information about him. And then Hulk also goes to the city and is sort of hiding out and happens to kind of wander in the same theater. And they're in that theater at the same time. They just Namor doesn't know it. Hulk sees him run out at some point, but they don't really interact with each other. It was kind of cool. This is where this is the last issue I've read though. So the rest of this I haven't read yet. So don't spoil them for me in the comments. But they're all pulled out and ready to be read. Number 85. '86, and kind of going back and forth. Submariner cover, Hulk cover. 87. I love this Silver Age Hulk so much. So good. 88. Make a little more room here. '89. They're with the stranger there. Excited to see what that's about. Here's another key issue, number 90. So this is the first appearance of Abomination. It's fine. It's probably fine. It's probably around a 6.0 or something like that. This is an issue I had. I collected this. I got this just because it was the first Abomination. I got this before I started collecting this run, so I thankfully already had it. It's a good issue to have for sure. But First Abomination did show up when it was a Submariner cover, so he didn't in Abomination's first appearance. He wasn't on the cover, but he was in the next issue, so he did make his first cover appearance in Tales to Astonish number 91. Number 92. This is another book that is a little bit pricey. 93. No, not for any particular real reason. It's mostly because Silver Surfer shows up, and it's a very popular cover. Also, it's a meeting of Silver Surfer and Hulk pre-Defenders, which supposedly has some sort of significance, I suppose. This, you may have seen this before. I talked about when I got this. It's a fairly decent copy. It's probably in the 5 to 6 range. It's good enough to present. I didn't need it super high grade because it's not a super significant key that I wanted to spend a whole bunch of money on. But I found this one and I got it for what I think was a really good price at that time. So I'm very happy with it. I was going to send this in to get graded during my last submission, but I hadn't read it yet, so I am going to read all these individual issues. I don't have them in reprints or anything, so I need to read the issues. So once I read this and I start sending stuff in to get graded again, that will probably go, just because it'll look so good up on the wall. 94. Prince Namor, helpless at the hands of Dragor. No idea who that is. 95. It's like they have a high evolutionary tail there. 96. I think some of these are minor keys. I don't remember. There's so many things that I got, and at the time no one cared, and then it turned out after the fact, like, oh, this little character showed up in there, and I don't know. They're just beautiful books, and they're great reads. 97. This one's great. 98 of Hulk, or not Hulk, Submariner. I assume underwater. Atlantis being shot up. Atlantis gets destroyed every other freaking week. 99. That's a beautiful cover. Yeah, 100. They're both on the cover. It looked like this is a full issue of the two of them. So I'm really excited to see how this comes to be, where they meet and fight, but instead of having the two stories, it's one story with the both of them. I'm curious to see how it leads into this and out of this, just how they handle that. But this is probably one of my favorite covers of the Submariner run, just because it has both of them on it. Not just both of them on the cover, but interacting, right? The other covers where they've both been on the cover, it's like it's the Hulk picture and the Submariner picture. Here they're actually interacting with each other. This one is in pretty good shape. There's some pretty significant sort of tan line there, which I'm not too worried about. But this might be another one that I send in to get slabbed just because I love the cover so much. And the last one, number 101, looks like we are Hulk's heading to Asgard. So this is the last issue. So this is why you have your Hulk 1 through 6, and then you didn't have a Hulk book for a long time, and it came back as Incredible Hulk 102. It's because it's not the same volume, it's not the same series. It's Hulk 1 through 6 was its own thing, and then Tales to Astonish turned into the Incredible Hulk at issue 102. Though, strangely enough, I think they do kind of consider 102 and on up as volume 1 of the Hulk. So, I don't know, it depends how you look at it. Is Hulk 102, is it Tales to Astonish turn into Incredible Hulk? Or is it the return of the Incredible Hulk book, but just takes over Tales to Astonish numbering? It's kind of strange. Some places that I look will count it as volume 2, which I think makes more sense, because there is a missing 90 some issues in between if you consider it to be volume 1 of Incredible Hulk. But yeah, that is the sub run of Tales to Astonish featuring the Submariner. It is all Hulk stuff, but specifically it's the Submariner stuff. There's no other Submariner Tales to Astonish. This is all it. There is more Hulk Tales to Astonish, and I'm sure once I complete that, I'll do an episode on that, because there's some good issues in there as well. It's a little shorter. It's 59. It's 11 issues, 10, 11 issues, something like that. But it's fairly significant. Stuff happens there. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, Tales to Astonish, Submariner edition. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any of these, if you've read these, if you're interested in reading them, and if you can, I highly suggest it. Again, I think it's some of the best Silver Age that I've read, like truly and honestly. It's so good. It's so much fun. I can't suggest it enough. So if you can get it in digital or whatever, it's real easy to read because it is just like it's a 10 issue, or a 10 page, 10 page, 10 page, and so on. So, and digital is probably real easy to read, right? You don't even have to read the full issue. When I open one of these, I'm going to read the full issue because I don't want to have to put it away and take it out again and all that. And I suppose in digital, you could probably, if you just want to read the Submariner bits or just the Hulk bits, it's a little bit easier to do. For the Epic collections, for the Hulk Epic collections, it does collect the Tales to Astonish things, stories, but it's just the Hulk stories in there, which makes sense. It's Hulk Epic collections. And I don't know if they do the same thing for Submariner or not. I don't think I've ever seen a Submariner Epic collection. But the first 3 Hulk Epic collections, they do give the Tales to Astonish stories, which is pretty great. But you don't get the Submariner stories, which are also awesome in my opinion. So that's it. Yep. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let me know what your thoughts on this run is, and what you think of this sort of format. Just kind of loosey-goosey talking about fun stuff to read. Right, it's out there. Some of it's a little more work to collect than others, but in this case, this took a lot of work. It took a little money, but man, I love it. It's so much fun. It was so worth it to me. So let me know your thoughts, and of course, don't forget to make yours Titan. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.